Well, how's everybody doing today? Woo. Did you enjoy your delicious lunch? Yippee! Conference lunch, yay! Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Rustaceans of all ages, I welcome you to participate in a exercise that I hope will educate, inform, and entertain you all for the next 45 minutes or so. We're going to go through what's called a tabletop exercise. My name's CRob. I'm from the security. I'm here to help. And I've been doing cybersecurity for a long time. I'm the Chief Security Architect for the Open Source Security Foundation. We are a project of the Linux Foundation. We're the subject matter experts within that open source community where we provide education, guidance, tools, best practices, and consultation around an assortment of supply chain, application security, and now AI security issues. Yay, because you got to throw AI on everything. I'm old. Most of the images you're going to see here were done with the assistance of my business analyst. I use two of them, one specifically for images and one for other nonsense. So you'll see some hopefully interesting graphics that will inspire you and will help pique your interest in the adventure. So briefly, I'm going to give you a little bit of theory, like what is incident response and why it's important. I'm going to introduce our scenario. Then I'm going to talk about our two personas that we have a choice to go through this exercise together with. And this is a very heavily audience participation dependent. Has anyone ever read a Choose Your Own Adventure book? Oh, okay, so you're pretty familiar that you're walking down a forest path and the path branches left or right. Which way do you go? This is the style with which this tabletop exercise is going to be conducted. So I'm going to give you the scenario. I'm going to adjust the scenarios through something called Injects, and then the audience gets to make a choice. We'll try to incorporate our friends out in the cyber world on Discord, but we'll come to these decision points. We'll take a poll. It's not scientific, but basically the majority is going to choose which way you steer this disaster off the rails. And then we'll kind of talk about some lessons learned and some resources that are available to the open source ecosystem. Does anyone here work in a organization that does tabletop exercises, mock disasters? Oh, fresh meat. Hooray! So within generally businesses, you will do what's called a tabletop exercise or a mock disaster. And what this does, it allows the organization to help understand how prepared they are in the circumstance of an actual business continuity or disaster recovery event. So let's say your office building, all the power goes out and your servers are there. You know, what do? Do you have the plan? So this tabletop exercise, you walk through these hypothetical scenarios and it tests your people, process, and technologies to see how well you would react. And basically the idea is to try to build up muscle memory, because when you're in the middle of an incident, you don't want to be learning how to do incident response. And when you're thinking about this within the context of open source projects or open source foundations, generally an open source foundation will have hopefully a security team, but worst case you might have like a security developer in residence or those people that do the security for the project or the foundation. And ideally this is to help prepare them and get them thinking about scenarios that could happen. Everything I'm going to show you today is inspired by actual events, has happened, not with Rust, thankfully. Knock on wood, we'll keep it that way. So we'll talk about some real world things that could happen, and ideally it kind of gets you thinking about whether you're an individual contributor, you're working on your own project, you work with the foundation, you work with other projects or within your own organization. So why should you care about incidents? This is a long list of data that may inspire you to be interested. But broadly, in 2024, IBM found that the average cybersecurity breach costs organizations just under $5 million per event. Generally, it takes defenders about just under 260 days to recover from an event. And I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth between kind of talking about downstream and then talking about upstream. But the concepts still apply. So the Rust Foundation isn't going to lose 5 billion euros or dollars out of their budget, but there could potentially be consequences impacting reputation, project adoption, or other factors. And then the scariest factor, my friends at CrowdStrike saw that the average time it takes an attacker to break out, so to penetrate your network and then start to move laterally, start snooping around the network, the average time is 48 minutes. The world record was 51 seconds. Yay, bad guys. So like as a defender and as someone that is a developer, you care about your software, you care about your downstream, there's a lot of things to think about. But broadly, some of the topics like why you would want to do this type of an exercise, you're working about trying to protect against identity theft, you're managing secrets and credentials, making sure they're protected. You may care about industrial espionage. You absolutely care about the reputation of not only the foundation, but your individual projects and the organizations where you all work. And then you have things like general run-of-the-mill stuff like theft and money laundering and Bitcoin mining, that type of nonsense. But also you have things like natural disasters. Hurricane Katrina, the 9/11 attacks, the tsunami that happened in Japan back in 2011. These are all things that had a very deep and long-lasting effect on these businesses and on people, and also potentially infrastructure that is used to serve up and support the amazing software that this community works on. There's a reporter, CRob on security, and he has many different reasons why you are a target. But unfortunately, something that's a little more relatable to everybody, did anyone ever hear of a little problem we had a couple years ago called the XZutils attack? Okay, good. So for those of you that didn't raise your hand, there was a person called Gia Tan, and they were able to work their way and get the commit bit on a project, and then started to embed backdoors into XZutilities, which is a compression library that's used in essentially every Linux distribution on the planet. Most hardware that is Android or Linux based. And we were one day away from that attack getting pushed out to the supply chain. And it's only because a performance engineer at Microsoft was doing some testing and he noticed some weird results, like the timing was off. And it's only because of a dedicated engineer that was curious and dug in that we were able to stop this global supply chain attack. But essentially, this was most likely a nation-state attack. This was supported by a highly skilled, highly funded government actor, and they were, again, days away from almost infiltrating the whole open source supply chain on the planet. So this is why this is important to you as developers. You all and your projects now are unfortunately targets. There's a methodology we use in incident response called Pickerel. My friends in Japan, when I ran this exercise for them, really loved that, it's not a TLA, but that acronym. And basically, Pickerel stands for the stages we go through an incident response. So as we're going through the event, I'll kind of highlight where we are in the incident. But the first stage is an event like today. We want to do preparation. Do we have documentation, playbooks? Do we have a call tree? Who do we notify if there's a problem? So it's that preparation is a really key stage, and things like this help you do that. Application security, training and education is another thing. Kind of setting up a security team is another. The next stage of an incident is identify, and that's when you understand that there is something going on and steps need to be taken. For an open source project, it's not quite as important, but if you work for a commercial entity, this is a very important decision point. You must decide how you're going to respond to this event. Are you going to go down the eradication path and essentially take destructive steps to stop the problem, turning off systems, removing credentials, wiping drives? Or is your goal prosecution? Do you think this is industrial espionage? You think you have some case in court? So there's two very different approaches you take in incident response, and you need to agree from the very beginning, like which path we want to go down. For most upstream maintainers, that's not germane to you, but if you work inside a corporation, that's something that's a decision point that the leadership needs to decide pretty early on. The next step, once you've identified there's a problem, is containment. How do we stop it? How do we isolate it, stop it from spreading further? Then, now that we've isolated it, we want to eradicate it, get it off the network, get it out of here. And then we go into the recovery phase. This is where, do we need to replace hardware? Do we need to download different dependencies because we might have had a malicious dependency? So this is where the steps you take to recover and return, whether it's the system, the project, or the business, back to full operations. And then the very last step is lessons learned, where you reflect back. These are the things that happened. You have a timeline. These are the actions we took. How well did we think we did? How can we do better next time? All right, and this is the first step where I need your help. We have two personas that I've prepared today. We have Roxanne, the Rust developer, and then we also have Eduardo, who's an enterprise consumer of Roxanne's project. So by a raise of hands or thumbs or whatever in Discord, do we want to be a Rust developer? Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's put the hands down. Or do we want to be a Rust consumer? Okay. Anything on, any overwhelming opinion on the Discords? Okay. Unsurprisingly, the room decided you would like to portray a Rust developer. This is my shocked face. Roxanne is a Rust developer. She likes writing safe, blazing fast Rust code. She likes to refactor legacy C++ into Rust. She likes to maintain, well, she maintains CI/CD pipelines to help her project operating smoothly. And then she also likes to collect obscure crates, just in case she might need that functionality or feature sometime in the future. Now, when you're in incident response, it's not solely the developer, the security team, or the businesses involved. You will have a lot of other personalities involved, and for other styles of this tabletop event, I might actually have players portraying these. But sometimes in incident response, you'll see like nation coordinators like CISA or ENISA over in Europe. You'll see regulators. If you work in banking or healthcare, you'll see the FDA or the Fed or the OCC. You will interact with other open source maintainers during an incident. A lot of times you'll get a lot of questions in your repo or in your discussions. You might have somebody from foundations. You could have product security teams, an enterprise consumer of your software. They might reach out to you. So there's this whole spectrum of people that you might interact with as you're going through this. So I want you all to think, it's a regular day. When you're not involved in a problem, what would describe a day in your life? Think about what you're doing. And I hope you're thinking about security, but I don't strongly suspect that's the case. But think about going through your daily activities. You're merging PRs, you're responding to issues and comments, you're interacting with other maintainers or contributors to your project. And very rarely does the security kind of pop up. And so this is going to be the scenario we're going to play through. There is a critical vulnerability introduced into an open source package via some compromised CI infrastructure, and this will eventually propagate downstream to enterprise production systems. All right, are we all ready? Woo! All right, day one, the trigger. You've discovered that your crate has two new contributors. Their handles are 3v33LH@XOR42 and shells for coins 007. Seems perfectly legit. And one PR they submitted modifies a base 64 handling in a very clever way. This seems very helpful. Or is it too helpful? So Roxanne, we have three paths in front of us. Do we want to merge that fast because you're all about productivity and speed? Do you want to do some investigation about these new contributors to your project? Or, hey, these guys seem these persons seem pretty smart. Maybe you should invite him to join your security team. So, audience, we'll start off with option A. You want to merge things fast. We got about a dozen or so. For B, you want to do some investigation. Oh, that's got some more respondents. And then option C, these people seem really smart. Maybe they should be part of your team. Oh man, you did defeat option A. But option B is what the audience has chosen to do. You're going to do some investigation on these new folks. New contributors, as you all hopefully are aware of, are a great way to bring new ideas, fresh perspectives, and ideally contributions to the project and help you burn down your backlog. However, after doing some investigation, Roxanne discovers that these two perfectly upstanding GitHub IDs are brand new accounts. They don't have any track record of contribution anywhere in Git, and the only history you can see of them is this PR they just submitted. Strangely enough, you'll see two similar accounts, Evil Coins 42 and Shells for Hackers 007, that have made similar contributions to other Rust projects, but those maintainers rejected those merges. And upon further examination, kind of looking at the PR, you're able to kind of see that this is pretty sloppy code. It's not going to do what they originally had stated it would, and it definitely is going to need a little more help. So Roxanne's going to politely decline, yay you, and you're going to send a warning to the Rust security group saying that there's some potential malicious activity, some unknown actors are trying to make some kind of high-profile security merges to the project. Every open source community is built on trust. That is how it started way back in the days when we exchanged punch cards with each other for programs, or today when we get together at hackathons or we're pair programming on code here at something like an event like this. But unfortunately, not everyone on the internet is trustworthy. There are bad actors. Projects, you should have a process to vet new contributors, and absolutely a contribution ladder that lays out how new maintainers are minted. And you need to do some fact checking before you let any random stranger into your project. And think about how do you validate who someone is, right, based off of what they say. We have tools. We have a project called the Open Source Project Security Baseline that has some guidelines on some things that you may want to consider as part of your project, as part of a vetting process. And as we go along, I'll kind of highlight where I'm aware of tools, whether it's in the LF or other foundations that may be directly related to what's going on here. All right, Inject 2. Roxanne is greeted this morning by Dependabot. And Dependabot has spit out a long list of updated dependencies. So Roxanne, what's your choice? Do you just want to merge everything while you're enjoying your delicious hot beverage? Just kind of start clicking away to get through it because you're super efficient? Do you want to get comfy and sit back and actually do some in-depth review, kind of reading each of these Dependabot issues and then understanding kind of what those changes were and how that might impact your project? Or C, do you just want to yank some of these crates out and start figuring out your own solution on how to fix this particular problem? So option A, merge everything really quick. Option B, sit back and enjoy a long day of reading. Oh. Or C, you just want to yank the crate and move along. All right, it looks like in my unscientific method, it looks as if option A was the winning choice. So looking into some of the Dependabot issues, the CVE reported doesn't appear to be part of Roxanne's code base. She mumbles, "Not my crate, not my problem," mashes the button, and merges a whole stream of Dependabot output. She grabs a steaming hot cup of coffee with 2 squirts of sugar-free cinnamon syrup and a dollop of sweet cream, because she's sweet. And she picks up a few other PRs to review. The rest of the day continues uneventfully.
Or does it?
Dependency management is a crucial component of modern application development. Your developers are amazing at creating solutions that solve the problems that you're trying to address, whether it's personal, academic, or business. But very few projects write all of their own functions or their own frameworks or their own protocols. So chances are quite good that you have one to hundreds of dependencies that make your software run. And so it's crucial that you understand the dependencies that you need your software to operate and how those changes that are external to your project, how do you get notice of these changes and how do you evaluate those things? Think about minimizing your work. Wherever possible within security, we call it reducing your attack surface. So if you don't need to have 20 dependencies, maybe you would be more efficient and less impacted by external events if you had 10. So you also want to choose the components that you're integrating or working with very carefully. You want to make sure that you're using software from developers that have a good reputation, that they potentially have had security training, or they might have a security capability part of their project, or you've talked with them and you understand kind of their engineering mindset. So think about this, and especially when you're leveraging external frameworks and libraries, wherever possible, reduce your scope, reduce your work long term. Things like software bill of materials, which is essentially a manifest of all the components that are part of your software. Consider having that available so that you can very quickly identify when something like the XZ utilities problem comes around. Do you have that anywhere in your transitive dependency tree? If you don't, great, you don't have any work to do. But odds are it might get squirreled away somewhere in a third, fourth, or fifth level dependency. All right. Inject 3, a security researcher. Those are the most delightful people ever. They are super helpful, always finding new ways to break stuff. Well, a security researcher drops a 0-day on Mastodon about your project. Poor Roxanne. And there's a coordinator called CertCC, which is a coordinating body here in the United States, and also a NISA Git copy, which is the coordinating body over in Europe. And there's going to be a blog post. So, Roxanne, here are our 3 choices. Do we want to go dark? Do you want to go investigate and kind of ignore the press and the outside world? Do you want to start a public GitHub discussion? Like, hey, I see this thing happen in the ecosystem. What's the community think? Or do you want to email the RustSec team and potentially phone a friend, somebody like the OpenSSF or trusted security experts to kind of help you think through this problem? So option A, go dark and investigate. Okay. Option B, start a public discussion. Openness and transparency is always a great thing, a great part of our ethos. All right. C, do you want to phone a friend? Talk to some security experts. Oh, man. All right. So, open source foundations typically will have resources to support their projects. Things like marketing, events folks, and ideally security experts. It might be a security developer in residence. It might just be a bunch of volunteers that take charge of the vulnerability report queue. A lot of different permutations. And my best advice is if you don't work with a security team today, think about finding someone that has that capability, because even though you might not have a security challenge today, odds are down the road something's going to happen. The RustSec team would reach out to folks like me at the OpenSSF for advice, which happens a lot more than you think, not RustSec talking to me, but I talk to many foundations around the world about different security things that arise. And it's best to talk to people that have had experience talking with researchers, negotiating embargoes, or trying to understand and help write some clear public communications that you could share with your community so that everybody knows what's going on. Phoning a friend is always a good idea, and it's not shouldn't be considered a mark of shame or a black mark against the project. You all are amazing at developing Rust, which is within the Rust language, which I have no ability to do. And so our worlds are very different. So if I was looking to develop a Rust app, I would absolutely lean into this community. Whereas from a security perspective, if you don't have that background or that training or that access to those folks, reach out and try to find a friend to help you out. Because especially when you get into things like where a researcher is getting aggressive on social media or a blog, that can snowball very quickly. And generally, in my experience, most developers don't have comms and PR training. They don't understand, and they might misspeak in public, which could cause potential reputation damage for your project or organizations using your software, or in certain circumstances might bring liability to you. So you want to be very careful about what you say publicly. Like open source developers, security researchers have a whole spectrum of reasons why they do what they do. Most of them are just very curious people. They have identified a problem, which is a puzzle to them, and they want to unravel it. And it's very similar to open source developers. There's a lot of reasons what motivate people to develop open source software. Sometimes I'm fixing a problem. Sometimes I have a school project, or my boss puts me on this project and I need to pick up some new skills in this area. So researchers are very similar, and they almost always never have deep knowledge of development, nor how your project is organized and what your processes are. So my advice to you would be approach these people cautiously, but assume positive intent. Assume that these people are coming to you because they're legitimately trying to help protect downstream, or they're legitimately trying to help get changes made. But vulnerability disclosure can be a tricky situation. Having experts around that understand how to do public comms, whether that's a press release, a blog, a social media statement, it's very easy for a simple reply on Mastodon or Blue Sky to spiral out of control and to have the mob pile on and have a lot of negative impression and blowback on your project and the good work that you all have been toiling away at. Think about reviewing. We have several coordinated vulnerability disclosure guides within the OpenSSF. I have one focused on open source maintainers. I have another focused on security researchers, where I try to explain to security researchers generally how open source development's done and the most effective ways they can engage with upstream communities to get their vulnerabilities reported. Inject 4. You're literally on fire. So that incident, even though you phoned a friend, this incident made it to the front page of Hacker News. There is a very large hyperscaler blaming your software for their outage, and it's causing a lot of turmoil and ranting and anger on the internet. So we have three choices. Do you maybe want to consult with a lawyer? A. Option B, do you want to post a heartfelt apology and request assistance and support from the community? Or C, do you want to release a patch, write a post-mortem, and then do some type of like a Twitch Ask Me Anything? So you want to lawyer up? What's my license? Well, and that's another challenge, especially for unaffiliated or kind of foundation-associated developers. You generally don't have a counsel on retainer. The Rust Foundation will, and like the Linux Foundation does, but for the line developers, you probably don't have access to legal counsel, and it can be expensive. So option A, there was about 8, 12 people. Option B, you want to post an apology and ask for community support. We'll get to that in a minute. Oh, only a couple people have faith in the community. Oh, Rustaceans, come on. Or C, do you want to do a patch, post-mortem, and an Ask Me Anything? All right. You all have gamed my game. So transparency and honesty are how you earn trust within communities and with your downstream. Sometimes it can be painful. It's not easy to stand up on any kind of a public platform and say, you know, we screwed up, or that we aren't perfect, we made a mistake, we chose the wrong dependency. But ultimately, that's the best course of action, and that will, in the long run, serve you better with your community and downstream consumers that want to leverage your software. A patch is the best way to solve these types of problems, and it always, sometimes it might be in your code base, that's something under your control to write a fix for. Other times it's not. You might have to wait on an external project to update their stuff so that you can soak up those fixes. But that is absolutely the best thing, and that is where you'll get most of your friction with your downstream. The minute anything, a vulnerability hits the media, you will invariably get a flood of downstream requests. Are you susceptible? Are you vulnerable? When are you fixing it? When can I get that fix? So just be prepared and think about how you'll react to those types of questions. And unfortunately, a lot of big organizations and some governments feel that all software should never have a vulnerability. Unfortunately, the reality of development is until my friends at Gemini and Copilot take over the world, generally software is made by humans. Humans make mistakes. Computers also make a lot of mistakes too, which is pretty cool. You want to document the incident. Have a timeline of this happened at this time. These are the steps we took. These are the people we reached out to. It's important to have that. And then again, share with the community. I worked with another foundation most recently, and they had a breach on their CI system. And when they were all done, totally unprompted, they wrote a really nice post-mortem report and published it as a blog for their community. Their community really appreciated that kind of respect and that transparency that that security team showed them. And then doing something like an Ask Me Anything is bold. It, I feel, is a good choice to do, but it can invite the randomness of the internet into the conversation. So you just want to be prepared for some potentially hard questions that might come your way, because you can't control what people's thoughts are, what their opinions are, and they're going to ask what they're going to ask. And it may not be exactly what you want. And having a prepared list of questions and responses ahead of time will help you in responding, especially when it's some type of live event. Vulnerabilities happen all the time, even to the most experienced developers. It is not a mark of shame, but it's something that planning, training, and having a network of friends to support you can help your project and help your community and your downstreams. Having a plan is the first step to make it through these types of things, and having a plan and executing on that plan is a great way to build trust and goodwill with your contributors, your community, and your downstream. And it's also critical. This whole event is inspired by Jiatan, where there's a group of well-funded malicious actors. You need to understand how you vet contributors and maintainers, and before you ever give away a commit bit, you need to understand who that person is and kind of what their track record is and what their intentions are. You'll never potentially get full honesty, but you need to do some type of due diligence to protect your project and your downstreams. All right. These are 10 principles of incident response. I don't expect you all to remember it. This presentation I already have up on my GitHub, and I'll share with Rebecca and the Rust team that you can make it an asset part of the conference materials. But whenever you're working through an incident, it's important to assign someone that's responsible to help orchestrate that response. In a business, that's normally someone like the CIO, the CEO, the CISO. But within a project, it could be the maintainer. It might be maybe you defer, if you're within a foundation like Rust, you might defer to the Rust crew. You need to understand what threats and risks are viable within the software you're working on. So if you have software that deals with networking, you need to think about things like encryption and network trafficking and load balancing. So you need to understand how those particular technologies could be broken, and are there things that you can do to defend yourself, or are there highly regarded components that you might want to leverage over Skippy's OpenSSL version the fork. Maybe you want to prefer going with the OpenSSL team who has a very long track record. So kind of think about this, understand how your project could be broken or attacked, and take some basic steps to prepare for that in the future. It's best if you have all this written down as a playbook or checklist. Again, when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't want to be making this up. And when you think about emergency responders or doctors or pilots, everything works off a checklist. It helps keep you focused and making sure that you're not missing out on any items that you overlooked. So it's a lot for an individual single maintainer project, but think about this. There is prior art that you could leverage, that you could copy and edit to help you with your particular community. Think about having a process for major decisions. If you're a single maintainer project, that shouldn't be hard. But if you work through consensus, or you have a technical steering committee, or you have a board, think about how decisions get made so that when it comes time to make a decision, like pulling a dependency, pulling a crate, you have the ability to talk to that decision maker and get that happening very quickly. Establish relationships with key stakeholders. That could be other projects that consume your work, that you are one of their dependencies, or build a relationship with projects that you depend on, saying, hey, I'm from this amazing Rust project. I love your work. You're one of my dependencies. I just want to kind of open up this channel so that if in the future, if we need any communication, we can talk to each other. That way you're not making it up when you're getting threatened on Twitter and you're on the front page of the register. If you're in a business, establishing SLAs and relationships around breach remediation, and this is where there are lawyers that specialize in this type of thing, and that's something that foundations or businesses consider, having a lawyer on retainer that is an incident response specialist. Because again, you're all amazing at development, you're not necessarily amazing at incident response. You might be, but probably not. And again, having an expert, someone that you're paying and this is their full-time job, helps make those interactions go much more smoothly. And this is, I would recommend for very large projects or foundations to have this capability on hand, that if anything arose in the community, they could lean into that. Making sure that you have the response plan documented. It could just be a simple MD file in your repo. It could be a piece of paper. It could be both, so there's a lot of different ways, but make sure that you have the plan written down, and then anyone that you might want to tap within the project during this incident, making sure that they have access to that plan as well, so you're all working off the same page. Making sure that everybody understands their roles and responsibilities. This is predominantly for like a downstream user, but if you have multiple people in the project, contributors and maintainers, understand kind of how you make decisions and who you need to be involved and who's going to do what action. Maybe somebody's really good at writing and Billy gets to write the blog while Sally actually kind of hacks on the code and tries to get the patch out quickly. Just think about that. When you have these scenarios, and it's very difficult for a single maintainer project, but wherever possible, have redundancy in your roles. So have 2 maintainers reviewing PRs before things get merged. That way, if somebody's sick, something happens to them, they're unavailable, there's always a backup. And again, this is advice for like a large project like Kubernetes or kernel, but think about this in your own work. If your project is starting to pick up with downstream enterprises, you may want to think about getting additional contributors, additional maintainers in, and having that redundancy so that you're not the single point of failure or you're not the bottleneck. And then practice and train and simulate breaches. Do events like this. There are a couple card games you can play. There's a really great, Microsoft a couple years ago did a threat modeling card game, and that really talks about, from the developer's perspective, the types of problems that can happen during development and how to respond to them. So there's a lot of ways that you could train and practice. There's education videos. We have a bunch of resources within our foundation. So I see I've got just a couple minutes of time left. We have a bunch of resources. Again, I'll share this presentation with you, and I'd like to try to potentially reserve. We have about 5 minutes. Does anyone, either in the internet or in the audience, do you have a question or comment? We have a microphone here.
So hi everyone, I'm Walter Pierce. I'm the security at the Rust Foundation. So I wanted to interject really quickly that if any of this comes up for you, I am here to basically be a security person and resource for not just the project proper, but for the rest of the community. So if any of the things pop up, you have that weird person doing commits, feel free to reach out to me. If it's not me that can help, I have the contacts that can help. I work with people at the OpenSSF. I work with people at Alpha Omega. I've been in security for a long time, so I also just know people. So if you ever need any help, feel free to reach out to me. I don't know if they're in the room right now, but there's also the Rust Project Security Response Team. They handle things that happen to the project and the project proper. If there's compiler vulnerabilities, if there's possibly we have malicious Rust releases going on, they'd be the people that I'd work with to contact. So also be aware of them. So I wanted to interject that, but now I will walk around with a microphone if anyone has questions.
Please.
Hold on, let me go over here.
And I'll show you the path you missed.
Hi, thank you for the talk. That was awesome. My question is more for you, actually. So we're using Rust, and one thing that scares us is like build.rs scripts, right? Like we're depending on some crates. There's a transitive dependency graph that's maybe like over 100 crates. A bunch of them have build.rs scripts that like run arbitrary code at build time. Like what are some best practices? Like what are ways that we could vet that in a way that's like, scalable and maintainable? Like how do we know that we're not running some random, very dangerous code that, is kind of like a side effect of our build process? Thank you.
Yeah, so I can keep it brief for that one. Excuse me. Right now, there isn't anything like out of the box that provides security for any of that. If you hop into the project Zulip, there's actually a few things percolating right now for declarative build language, sandboxing for the builds. A few of those are released or in progress. OpenSSF also provides a basically package repository analysis that they do not for only Rust, but for Python and NPM as well. So you can see sandboxed build analysis of building all of the crates on crates.io and whether there's malicious activity. But we don't have further analysis besides myself and one of the other members of the Rust Foundation that are, at least trying to actively monitor that and find malicious things. But if you'd want to get involved on, maybe helping doing like declarative build RS or more sandboxing analysis, feel free to hop on Zulip and ask too.
Yeah. And we also have a concise guide on evaluating open source software that may be helpful, kind of give you some clues about when you're choosing dependencies. I know you don't always get that choice. I think there was a question. Oh, on Discord, yay.
Yep, so next one we have a Discord question. It was, is it the bottom one? Yeah. I feel like an OSS incident checklist could be templated. Is that around already?
Yes, part of our CVD guide for projects, I believe, has a checklist. And if it doesn't, please open an issue in my vulnerability disclosure repo, and I will get that to happen for you.
My question was regarding your hypothetical. So the security researcher posting his discovered vulnerability on social media, just to be clear, that's not a responsible way to disclose a discovered vulnerability, right?
Correct. I've had the opportunity to work with security researchers for a very long time. Some of them do follow a practice called responsible disclosure or coordinated vulnerability disclosure. And just dropping a 0-day on social media is not, while it is possible, it's not like socially acceptable. So those people kind of damages their reputation and their ability to get work done. But it does happen all the time. So just be aware that because your software is out on the internet, people out on the internet might have opinions and talk publicly about you, and sometimes not in nice ways.
Hi there. Thank you for the talk. I'm actually not sure if this would address one or both of you, but I was thinking about CVEs in the Rust ecosystem regarding Rust C and the compiler itself. If I remember right, there was an issue like 10 versions ago having to do with like Windows variables, like Windows path. Yes, I was going to ask if that was something that either of you were involved in. What did we follow this process? What was the reaction from the community like? I was wondering if you'd speak on that.
Yeah, so I saw that, but I was not tangentially related to it. All of those sort of things happen within the security response team. I provide myself as a resource for the project's security response team. So if they need help with things, they reach out to me. They usually keep me informed on things, but we like to keep things pretty delineated between, me doing, project and broad ecosystem security while the security response group handles specific things to the project. We mainly have that delineation so things can stay embargoed within the project and they can stay autonomous on how they respond to things, or how the project itself wants to handle it versus the foundation dictating anything. We don't want to do that. So that's how that is. But yeah, you are correct. It was explicitly how Windows paths were handled, causing command execution in certain circumstances. And that was an interesting one because I'm not sure if you saw it, but it was reported to Rust, but it was also a researcher that was basically going through things, found that, and also found it in NPM and Python, and I believe one other language where it was actually, hey, everyone's doing their command execution wrong, so I'm going to blast all the vulnerability reports everywhere.
Yeah, I was not personally involved in that. I saw it go through,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's very common. And as Walter mentioned, you're going to have the core tenet of incident response is need to know. So if you have the ability to directly influence and fix the problem, you'll generally get included in the reading list. But if you aren't, you generally aren't going to know about it until it goes public. And I think we're at time. But thank you, everybody. I hope you had fun. If you have questions or comments, I'll be around.